Pride, everybody! This weekend officially marks the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Riots, which means it marks 50 years of Pride officially, and that is a pretty special day. So hello everybody, for those of you who didn't know, my name is Andy Barr and I am a romance and fantasy author, self-published. My first novel, Paper Flowers, is out now. Check out the links in the description. And now with that plug out of the way, because this is the 50th anniversary of Pride, for my second video for June and Pride Month, I'm going to be doing the Pride Flag book tag, which requires me to pick books based on the themes of each of these stripes in the LGBTQ Pride flag. Before I do that, I do want to recommend one book that is not actually to do with this book tag. I want to recommend The Stonewall Reader to you. It is a book that is made up of first-hand accounts of the years leading up to the Stonewall Riots and the years after the Stonewall Riots. It basically chronicles in first-hand accounts the birth of Pride and, you know, the start of how we came to be where we are today. And it's a really interesting read. The stuff in it is super fascinating, and also this anniversary edition has the most gorgeous dust jacket. That's the actual cover, and then there's just this beautiful pink dust jacket which has a really cool texture. So I think that if ever there's a time to read this, the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Riot is definitely that time. Okay, let's get on to the book tag. The red stripe in the Pride flag represents life. So the prompt asks for a book with a protagonist who is spirited and incredibly proud of who they are. Boy Meets Boy by David Leatherton definitely fits this prompt idea. The main character, Paul, who I keep forgetting his name is Paul. He doesn't get called by his name very much in this book, so I kept forgetting his name was Paul. But Paul is definitely spirited and definitely proud of who he is. He gets a bit confused by people who aren't proud of who they are. I think he's a bit naive at times, but he's definitely spirited, he's definitely proud. I recommended this book a few times this year already because it's gorgeous. It's 16 years old this year. It was first published in 2003, so it's, you know, it's weirdly progressive for a book that was published that early, but I love it. It's whimsical, it's cute, it's, I don't know, it's just, it's really hopeful. It gives you hope that the world has the potential to be a much better place. The orange stripe in the Pride flag represents healing. So this one asks for a book that gave you a sense of healing or catharsis in your own life. I don't know if catharsis is the right word, but Yes, Yes, Yes by Alex Greenwich and Shirlene Robinson, sorry I forgot her last name for a second, definitely gave me a chance to work through some emotions that I've kept unprocessed for a while. This book is a first-hand account from two people who are heavily involved in the marriage equality movement in Australia, and it's basically about how we eventually got to marriage equality. For anybody who doesn't know, Australia's path to marriage equality was a bit of a confusing one, and it was also very painful for the LGBTQ community here. We had to undergo a postal plebiscite, and a postal plebiscite basically is a non-compulsory vote sent out to everybody who's registered to vote in Australia, asking whether or not they supported marriage equality. The vote was non-legally binding, which meant it didn't matter what the result was. If the government decided not to go ahead with legalising marriage equality, they could do so even with a yes vote. But the thing was, if we got a no vote, there was no way they were going to look at it, and we were going to have to wait for a government changeover in order to get it. So we had to campaign, we had to fight for this, and it put us under a microscope. It was very painful. There are a lot of wounds that still haven't been healed in the last 2 years because of what happened, and it was just a time that was really, really difficult. It was so difficult to be queer in this country, and I haven't processed a lot of emotions from that, and this is helping me do that. And I've cried a lot. I'm about halfway through. I've cried a lot. I just know that when I get to the actual day that the vote was passed in Parliament, I'm going to be a mess, because I was a mess when it actually happened. I used to live in Canberra. I lived in Canberra at the time this happened. My friends and I were in Parliament. We were in the public gallery when the vote passed, and I was sobbing my eyes out. And I just, it was an amazing moment. It was an emotional moment for sure, and this book is reminding me of that. So I highly recommend for anybody who's interested in how we got to marriage equality. This is really interesting to read. The yellow stripe on the Pride flag represents sunshine, because what else does the colour yellow represent? So this one asks for a book that brings you so much joy it can brighten even your darkest day. And there was only one book I could pick for this, and that's Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This book makes me so happy. The first time I read this, it's a pretty thick book. I stayed up really late to finish it because it was just so good. I couldn't put it down. Like, I literally couldn't put it down. It was amazing, and it's so cute. Like, chapter 61. I know it's basically just Harry Potter fanfiction, but I don't care. I love it so much, and I can't wait for the sequel that's coming out later this year. I love Simon and Baz so much. The green stripe in the pride flag represents nature, so this prompt asks for a book that is set out of this world, and I definitely went literal with this one. This is the Sci Regency series by J.R. Langley, which, yes, you can tell by the covers, is a romance series, and it is a steamy romance series, but I will say for this one that there isn't like an overindulgence in regards to the sex. The sex scenes that are in the books are explicit, but there's not a huge number of them, so I do approve that. The main focus is on character and relationship development, and also the conspiracy plot that runs through the entire series. Now, this series I love because I love Regency romances and I love science fiction, and this book combined the two. It's Regency period England style stories set in outer space. They're in like a different galaxy to us, and there's like spaceships, and there's like laser gunfights, and it's just, there's AIs and computers, and just, oh, it's so good. And it's just, I love the series, I love all the couples, I love all the characters. I think My Regilance Rake is definitely my favourite because it involves an unrequited love becoming requited, which, that's my jam. I love that kind of stuff, but I think Diplomatic Relations was probably the cutest. It's the most recent. The characters in it, they're the closest in age, and like it's a first love sort of story, and you can like feel that. You can feel the youth and the enjoyment of falling in love for the first time, and it's so cute. And yeah, no, I just really love this series, so I do recommend it for anybody who likes fusion genres, because like it is super Regency but also super sci-fi, and I love that. The indigo stripe on the pride flag represents peace. So this one asks for a book where the protagonist has to come to terms with a difficult truth. I went with two books for this one because I couldn't choose between them. So We Are Okay by Nina LaCour and They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I will be honest with you, I haven't read this one yet. I've been putting it off because I know I'm going to cry, and I'm halfway through reading this one. We Are Okay by Nina LaCour is an Own Voices book. Actually, so is They Both Die at the End. They're both Own Voices. And the protagonist in We Are Okay has to come to terms with two difficult truths. She has moved away and basically cut everybody out of her life when she's gone away to college because of two events that happened in the summer before she started college. And the book does flashbacks and present day, so it sort of shows her having to come to terms with these things, and I think it's leading towards a sort of hopeful ending. I don't think it's going to be a everything gets wrapped up happily ending. I think it's going to be a hopeful ending that things will be okay because she's healing, which I highly approve. I don't think that happy ever afters suit every book, and this one certainly, a hopeful ending is definitely better for it. And then They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, as you can tell from the title, involves characters who are going to die at the end. According to the blurb, it's set in a bit of a dystopian world where you basically get told when you're going to die. And these two boys, they are both going to die on the same day, and they spend their last day together falling in love. And I think that coming to terms with the fact that you're going to die tomorrow is definitely a difficult thing to come to terms with. So this one definitely fits. I know that I'm going to cry when I do eventually get around to reading it. So read this if you want to cry, because Adam Silvera is really, really good at tugging at the heartstrings and just making you feel just devastated by the stories he tells. So highly recommend both of these books. The violet stripe on the pride flag represents spirit, soul, that kind of thing. So this prompt asks for a book that looks at both LGBTQ themes and religious themes. And I struggled with this one. I'm going to be very honest with you, I struggled with it because I don't think I have actually ever read an LGBT book that deals with the themes of religion. And that's not through any avoidance of it, it's just that the ones that I've picked up haven't dealt with it, and if they've mentioned religion, it hasn't actually been a theme of the book. And I think, speaking from personal experience, a lot of that comes from the fact that a lot of queer people feel alienated from religion, so why are they going to write about it? But then I remembered there is a book on my TBR that I've been wanting to read ever since the movie came out. It's a memoir, some of you might know what I'm referring to now, and it definitely deals with the themes of religion. Boy Erased by Gerard Conley. Sorry, I forgot his name for a second, I'm terrible with names. Which is the story of him going to conversion therapy. And it's very difficult to read. I'm about halfway through this. You'll notice I've said that about 3 books. I'm reading like 5 books at once at the moment. So I'm like halfway through 5 different books at the same time, because that's the kind of person I am. But this book, I actually need to take breaks from reading it because it's brutal in places. It's brutally honest about what he went through and his emotional struggles, and it's difficult to read. It's genuinely very difficult to read, but I also think that it's very important to read because it's super important to remember that this still happens. Like, even though this happened to him a while ago, I think it was like 2004 or something, this still happens to people today. There are still people who are sent to conversion therapy. Conversion therapy hasn't been illegalized anywhere. It is very much still an issue. There are still churches that alienate LGBTQ people. There are still families that kick out their queer kids. There are people who reject others for being queer. And reading this reminds me that even though Pride Month is a month where I go around feeling super great about being queer, Pride Month is probably a scary month for other people, and probably a sad month for some people because it reminds them of why they're different and why they've been rejected. And so this is an important book to read. And actually the front cover has a thing on it that says, "An urgent reminder that America remains a place where queer people have to fight for their lives." And it's not just America, it's the world over. Queer people have to fight for their lives everywhere, and this book does remind you of that. So if it's something that you think you're able to read, like it's not going to harm you emotionally or psychologically, I do recommend reading it because it is a very poignant reminder of why we have pride, of why we are still fighting today for our rights. Thankfully, there's actually still one more prompt left on this, even though my flag is missing the requisite stripes. There is still one more because that would be a really depressing way to end this, but some of you might know that there is another version of this flag that has a brown and black stripe underneath the violet. And those stripes are to remind us that the LGBTQ+ community is not homogenous. Not everybody who is queer is white. There are people of colour who are just as important in our community, and in fact, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, who were the invokers of the Stonewall Riots, neither of them was white, and it's something that a lot of people seem to forget, I think. So this last prompt is really important to me. So those 2 stripes represent diversity, and so obviously I have to pick a book with diverse characters, and I have the perfect one. This is The Disasters by M.K. England. I was about to say London, but that's wrong. M.K. England. And this is a YA sci-fi novel. Now, when I pick up a YA sci-fi novel, I expect the protagonist to be straight, white, and male. The protagonist of this book is in fact male, but he's not white, and he's not straight. He is bisexual, and he's Pakistani, and he's Muslim. But it doesn't stop there. There are 5 main characters, so I've already told you about Nax. Another one of the main characters, he's black and gay. They're the only 2 male main characters. Our next one, she is either Latina or Asian. It's never made clear which. She has 2 mums and you're never told which one is her biological mother, so she could be either, but either way, she is not white, and I have my questions about whether she's straight. Another main character, she's Middle Eastern, she's also Muslim, and she's a genius. She's fantastic. Also have my questions about whether she's straight or not, but it's not made clear. And our last one is our only white main character, but she's trans. She's also not American or English. She's from the Ukraine. So she's white, but she's not from one of the generic countries that white characters normally come from in sci-fi and fantasy and YA novels. She's from a completely different country, so that makes her a little more interesting than usual. This series has an incredibly diverse cast. I will say, a lot of the characters came across quite flat. I think that's because the very short time frame this book is set over, the story was a little bit rushed, but I do think it's going to be part of a series, so I think we'll get to know the characters a little more, so I can forgive it for the flatness of the characters if it is going to be a series. But either way, the only thing that this book is really missing from its diversity is a physically disabled character. It doesn't have one of those, but who knows, maybe one will get brought in if it does become a series. Either way, this book is brilliant and it's so interesting. The premise is really cool and I just recommend this book. This book is fantastic. Right, so that was the Pride Flag book tag, everybody. Thank you for watching. Happy World Pride, everybody. It is a wonderful time to be queer. I'm very proud. I hope you're very proud, and I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Just another reminder, my debut novel, Paper Flowers, which is a gay romance novel, you can see it on my bookshelf up there. It is out. It is available in hardback and ebook. The paperback will be coming out later this year with some bonus content in it, I'm telling you now. So there'll be a link in the description where you can buy my book. It has been getting amazing reviews so far. I'm going to link you to a video review in the description of this video as well if you want to have a look at what somebody else thought of it. I think it's fantastic. Just saying. Thank you for watching today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Tumblr. The links are in my description. And you can subscribe to me on Patreon for extra bonus content and sneak peeks of my works in progress. Alright, I hope everybody has a wonderful day, a fantastic Pride, and I will see you all in a couple of weeks for my next video. Bye!